I'm here with Adam Adamou, CEO of OverActive Media. I think Overwatch fans that will likely be watching this are familiar with OverActive because of the Toronto Defiant, of course, that are, as you announced, once again going to be the team that you're fielding, even under that brand. That's going to be interesting to discuss why you made that choice. But you might also be known to the audience as, owners of the Toronto Ultra, the MadLions, and then most recently, the acquisition of the Movistar Riders and Koi. Now I'm interested because let me go a little bit out of bounds of Overwatch here. I'm interested to hear how that process went because I feel like you guys are courting the Spanish market, and I think there was a consideration here where the situation between FlyQuest and EG was denied by Riot Games. That the TPA, the transfer of the slot was not allowed. Now, in your case, that was something that was greenlit. Now, I would say it's a very different situation. They are selling the slot. You guys merged, or rather bought, those brands, right? Is that the formative difference that made you guys be allowed to go through this merger and get that slot?
Well, hello to you too, Sasha. That's you just go right into it right away, and that's
Always.
fine. Look, I can't. First of all, we're very happy to be in VCT EMEA. I think that was like a part of our team portfolio that we were missing, we had as our major objective to enter that ecosystem again. I really don't know much about the details for the evil geniuses or FlyQuest or what the situation is, but I think unlike I'm going to focus on the European market because we're also in LEC and we're in VCT EMEA as opposed to the North American or the American side. It's very clear that one is a franchise league, LEC, for example. And so you see those franchises being bought. I think just recently Carmine Corp, paid whatever the rumored amount of money to buy that slot from Astralis. Okay. So that is the nature of a franchise league. And that is what you can do over there. Valorant is very different in its structure in that it is a licensing agreement and it is part of a long-term partnership. Okay. So you don't have a franchise that you can sell like you can in the LEC. You have a license agreement. That is a mutual agreement. I have obligations to Riot. They have obligations. We're a partnership. We're going to work together. And, when they select their partners, they went through a very, very detailed process to choose them, and they want to be partners with those organizations for a reason. Okay. And I would speculate that being able to sell that license is not part of their long-term partnership plan. It's not the way that they want to run the league. And so they want to be in a position where they can't prevent you from being acquired. Okay. If somebody wants to buy your company, but even if you're acquired, the license may be transferred if they approve it, but you have to buy the whole company. Okay. And then they have to still approve you. Okay. And then they may choose to make you still use the same name, like, depending on a whole bunch of factors. So for example, if you want the 100 Thieves license, you have to buy 100 Thieves. That's how you get it. Okay. And I don't know what the structure is over there, but what we're doing is something that is in accordance with the way that they see their license and their teams. We bought all of the esports assets of Koi. Everything that is Koi is now part of us, including their main influencers, their main people, some of their employees. So everything that is Koi that they approved into Valorant is now part of us. Okay. And that I think is a big reason why they approved it. It wasn't guaranteed that they would approve it. They took their time and they did their due diligence, and I think they were satisfied that this works. Like if I went in and said, I just want to buy the license and I don't want to buy the rest of Koi and I want to make that MadLions, I don't think they would have said no. I can tell you that for sure.
For sure. Now, this play for the Spanish esports market there has an interesting opportunity for Overwatch theoretically as well, because Overwatch opens once again in Europe. So I assume at least you had to make a decision whether or not you go forth with the Toronto Defiant, stay in the North American market, or if you could theoretically, I think even in an announcement, you guys said you wanted to, look into sort of bringing all the brands together. At the end of 2024, why was the decision made to still go forth with Toronto to Defiant for this year?
Well, I mean, for one, this acquisition of Riders and Koi, wasn't finished yet, and we have multiple brands as we come together, in just the nature of branding and copyright and the intellectual property, and you have sponsorship commitments where somebody's a sponsor of this brand and not that brand in this game and so forth, right? And so when you put it all together, it takes some time to work through all of those details, because it's not just up to us, it's up to a whole bunch of other external partners, leagues, and things like that. So I would say creating new brands is not easy, okay? And it takes some time. And so in order to operate as smoothly as possible while we're making two acquisitions at the same time is very difficult. Let me just say that. Like it's not it's not twice as difficult as buying one company. It's 5 times as difficult. Right? It's exponential in terms of doing two. And so to keep it simpler, we've decided that we're going to maintain more brands for 2024. And for Overwatch, the easiest thing to do is Toronto Defiant. We have sponsors, we have fans, we have an audience, we have the name, we have the ownership of the IP. So it's easier just to continue to run that as Defiant. We're running Toronto Ultra as Ultra. We're running MadLions has become MadLions Koi. Okay. Our Valorant team will be called Movie Star Koi. We've got a Counter-Strike team that's called Movie Star Koi. We've got a FIFA team that's called Atletico de Madrid. Okay. We've got too many brands, and then we've got OverActive. Okay. That is a hodgepodge of too many names, too many words, okay, too many details, but I can't do that right away. Okay. And so over the course of 2024, all of the different parties that are involved in OverActive, including riders, including Koi, including our sponsors, including our fans. We want to engage with everybody to decide, what is the one brand to rule them all right? And my hope is that by the end of this year, we can have an announcement, and that will be the name of not only the brand, but the whole organization. And then in the perfect world, all of our teams will be called that. It's just much simpler. I know some people will be disappointed no matter which direction that we go. But clearly I gave you all of those names. I mean, the current situation is not tenable, right? So
it seems like because you guys are active in 2 markets, one solution could be to have 2 brands, right? Like the Toronto brands and then the Spanish brands, right?
Yeah.
Is that at all in the cards, or is it really now?
No, we've thought about that. I don't want to do that. I think, we're one brand, we're one company, and, we're in different markets, but, we are one company operating in different markets with the same objectives. Okay. And I want our fans, in not only in Spain, but in Europe, in Latin America. We have a lot of fans in Mexico, in Colombia, in Ecuador, and Chile. I get a lot of kind of outreach from a lot of these people that are big fans of some of our European brands. I want them to be fans of our North American teams. I want our North American fans to be fans of our European teams. And you do that with one name. Again, I think we want to create an identity that is bigger than any one game, and it goes contrary to the way that the Overwatch League and the Call of Duty League, the Activision Blizzard, and I think I liked those ideas. I think there was a lot of really great ideas that we have in those leagues, including Call of Duty currently, that either failure of execution or other things that basically came together didn't work out. But I think that era is probably changing, and this is the era that's probably going to replace it.
I think one interesting opportunity for Overwatch specifically, and I'm not sure if it's possible, but I wasn't quite sure how to take it. But you tweeted after your announcement of the Toronto Defiant roster whether or not Ibai was interested in Overwatch. Now,
Yeah.
under your one brand, you think there's ever a possibility where Ibai actually makes a co-stream for a Toronto Defiant game at
Oh,
Overwatch
sure. Oh,
Championship?
yeah. I think we could do that. I think, you know, Ibai's pretty big. I
Yes.
hope everybody knows. Okay, and he is, I think, the number one streamer on Twitch. He's certainly the biggest streamer for any of the games that we're in, and he does the co-streaming for League of Legends. I mean, on his co-stream for our League of Legends match, MadLions Koi, he had 250,000 people watching his stream. His stream is bigger than the LEC stream when he co-streams. Okay, so and I think the same is going to be true for Valorant and Counter Strike. He streams that, so he streams a lot of our European language things, and we haven't decided that he's going to do that as well. Although it might be something interesting. But if the opportunity comes and it makes sense, I think we could get a pretty big audience from Ibai's co-stream for the league. I think we also have a lot of other influencers now too that can participate. For 2024, to get them to stream. I think it would be very big for the Overwatch Champion Series because the viewership will be much higher. From our sponsors and our business, the way that it is, kind of currently, it probably doesn't make a lot of difference. Like, we want to try to reach North American audiences and Canadian audiences with that brand right now. So while it would be cool, it's probably not the most effective use of his time. But if we had one name and one brand, it probably becomes more interesting.
Right. Now, in part, because this year's really a proving ground for Overwatch in a third-party system, did you adjust your expectations, or rather goal setting for your squad as well? I mean, you guys were, I would argue, one of the most proactive teams in terms of content creation, but is this something that you will encourage your players as well? Do you have, like, I don't know, stipulations about streaming hours in your contracts or something like this, just to create these incentives?
Yeah, we have all of those incentives. That's a big part of I think the plan going forward. I think one of the reasons we're excited about Overwatch is that it is a great game for influencers, for co-streamers. We saw before the Overwatch League, how many people blew up, from that started with Overwatch. And I think there's still a lot of interest there from people that might want to come back and watch content or watch their favorite streamer or influencer co-streaming that. And one of the things that I really liked about the new system is that you won't have that exclusivity or the prevention from being able to do that. So so I think we're going to lean into that. Again, it is a proving ground though, and so we'll see. I'm not sure what to expect. You were in, but I'm still not sure what to expect once it kind of comes together, right?
Sure. Yeah. Is there any other changes that you have taken from an operational structure in order to, acclimate towards this open system of the Overwatch Championship Series?
No. Look, we thought about doing a number of different things. One is, there's, you could keep everybody playing from home, okay, and in their basement or in their bedroom or whatever, or you can kind of have them like like the way that we did it before. We considered that. That's certainly a lot less expensive to do it that way. We thought about reducing support staff or doing how do you kind of reduce that? One of the advantages of the Overwatch League is you had like a guaranteed minimum, and now there is no guarantees or any of that kind of stuff. There's no skins that I can sell like you could in the past. The revenue is mostly the prize money, okay, and that's it, okay. So it's much more expensive for the teams to operate even though the salaries are probably lower than they were before. But we were subsidized before, so I have like some amount that I can be guaranteed, and so that covers a lot of the expenses. So now you're on your own, okay? And the first thing is you try to figure out, how much can I cut the costs to be able to kind of operate. And it really got to the point where, we thought, like, if we're going to do it that way, then why do it at all? Like, let's try to, there's an opportunity here for this system to be bigger than the Overwatch League, okay? And there's a lot of things here that they're doing that I prefer to the way that they were doing it in the Overwatch League. Hopefully there's more teams, there's more participants, hopefully there's more players. The region component is interesting as well. The lack of exclusivity for broadcast, the co-stream. There's a lot of things here that I think can be much better. And, we want to go in and give our best effort, okay? So that at the end of the year, if we decide, will we continue on this? Is there a future in this? What is going to happen with this thing? I will have the data from us doing our best, kind of doing the best that we could in it, okay? And that can provide more kind of information for us to decide how to go forward. So to be clear, all of our players will be coming to Toronto. They will be in, the apartments that we had from before. They will be training in our facility in the Bell 5 zone. We'll be doing content with all of them like we did. Like, we are treating this like the way that it was before. And, we still have sponsors that have been partnered with us for many years that will continue to be part of it with us, right? And we're going to go into this experiment together and see what happens. I'm optimistic, but again, we'll have to wait and see.
An interview with Kasoris was just released like an hour ago, so I didn't get to catch the full contents, but he said that the underlying goal is basically to, be the winning or the best team in North America and then have a shot at the World Championship. Is that an accurate goal setting that you had for? Keep in mind, that's me just going through the
for sure. Yeah. Oh yeah. Look, we think we can win all of it, right? And I think it's good to see other teams entering like Falcons, and I expect that we might see some other ones as well. But we think we have a very, very good team, and I think we're going to give them the best conditions for winning. Okay, and that's why the training and the location and playing together, all of that stuff. And I don't know what to expect from the other teams, but I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this because it's like a fun thing. I'm doing this because I want to win. And frankly, most of the revenue, if you just kind of eliminate the sponsorship side, most of the revenue is the prize money, right? So, if we don't go to Dallas and we don't go to Stockholm, I would say if we don't go to both, that's a failure. Okay. And if we don't do very well at both, I think that's a failure. And I'm setting the bar very high, but, that's what I was convinced by our staff that we could do. And that's what I approved. And so if that's not what we get, then it hasn't been a success for the team side.
Sure. And it looks like from how the team came together, I think there are a bunch of best in slot positions how that worked. I will also say from what is rumored behind the scenes, you guys probably had the most competitive offer to the vast majority of competitors in those scenes, certainly North America from what I've heard. And it's interesting. Now, we have to take the caveat of course, Canadian taxes into account that, has to be evaluated by the players. But generally speaking, having the best offer, I feel has to be justified in some way. And I'd like to read a tweet for you because I feel the expectations, or rather the reception of the Overwatch Championship series was very different from past Overwatch League executives in terms of how they evaluated this. So, for instance, Grant, the VP of Esports Business of the Washington Justice, tweeted, at the Overwatch Championship series announcement tweet, he quote tweeted this and said, "I've struggled this week to find the words to describe how sad it is watching esports regress to this level. This system is not economically sustainable for players or teams, and represents a complete surrender in having esports aspire to be a standalone industry. Where's the disconnect between Grant and you here?
Look, I think he's welcome to his opinion. Okay, but remember, the Overwatch League required teams to pay 30 million. Okay, and and we had kind of a lot of included expenses that we had to operate. Okay, so when we're taking a look at where we are, you have to kind of take a look at where we were and how unsustainable that was. Okay, and and so there was a lot of good ideas there, but the execution wasn't there, and we made a lot of mistakes in terms of how to deliver the product. You saw there was cost cutting, the quality of the broadcast, the exclusivity on YouTube. There was a lot of those factors there that made that just impossible to succeed. Okay, and I thought the game as an esport is better and bigger than the league that we created for it to be. Okay, the league was killing the game in the esport. Okay, and so that's where we were. So I'm not sure what Grant is saying, but do I want to go back there? No, I was one of the people leading the charge. I was, I was in front of the line, basically saying a lot of this, and there's others as well. But I mean, we were certainly very motivated to change that because it was not only uneconomical, but it was actively hurting what we thought would be a better esport without it. Okay, so that's kind of part one. Part two is, it really is kind of an issue of, do you believe in Overwatch esports or not? Okay, because I agree that the current state of the OWCS is not the best, okay, that it could be for team organizations, for sure, okay, but it's not a bad reboot, okay? It's not a bad reboot because it wants to encourage as many teams and as many players, especially for the last 5 or 6 years that were locked out of competition. The tier 2 stopped kind of being viable for many of them. There were so many exits and there was so many kind of departures because it was so inaccessible, okay, that we expect that it will take some convincing to get everybody to come back, okay? And to undo some of that harm, okay, you want to make it as open as possible for as many players to want to try to be a part of it as possible, okay? And that's the reboot, okay? So it's like a soft reboot. Okay, we're going to go back to the ground roots. Esports is a ground roots phenomenon. Like, the more you try to start from the top down, okay, it sometimes it often kind of actively harms it, okay? And so what we want to do is we want to start from the ground up, okay? You and 4 of your friends, come together and put a team, put it on Face It, and you could be competing in the first qualifier, okay? And let's have 1,000 of those, okay? And you're going to have some like us that are going to take it, very seriously and do all of the resources and so forth. And you're going to have just, my son and his team plays, he's pretty good. He's pretty competitive. I think he's going to probably, I don't expect that we're ever going to play against him. I hope not. Maybe that would be a conflict. But, he's in the North American region, and, and I hope that he does well, right? But the reboot has to start from the ground up. And so, if it's like this in 5 years, I think he's probably right. But I think if we can do the reboot and get the biggest audience and increase the number of players and make people in Europe, for example, that had no reason to play Overwatch competitively, for the last 5 or 6 years, get them back and playing, okay? Bring people in Latin America here, Korea, Japan. Let's get as many players as possible. And if we can do that, we can figure out the best economics for everybody down the road, right? And that's what we're focusing on right now. So I that's where I disagree.
How do you evaluate the early reception, especially of the player base and the audience, to the Overwatch Championship series? Did you expect to be, this much talk as it was? Did you expect more, less?
I'll let you know once we start up and I see like how things kind of sustain over the course of the year. I think I would say so far so good. I think it's happened very quickly, right? So I found out the details around the same time that everybody else did, right? And then here's the information. Everybody more or less got the information at the same time. And hey, we're starting March something, right? So the time, I mean, to put together the teams, the rosters, the plans, there's not that much for this year, which I think is probably going to mean that there's maybe fewer professional organizations involved in it than there will otherwise be. And I think there's a lot of other organizations in particular and players that are saying, I need to give it time. Like you need to prove to me that this is going to work. And I will say there's other people that are saying, look, I have very limited money to invest in esports as an org or even as a player in terms of which games I'm going to choose. And before I decide to commit money to this, I need to get a better view of the sustainability and your commitment to it. So look, we have to prove to everybody that didn't believe before, okay, that there is a future here. And the best way to do that is to make it as open as possible. And that makes the economics probably harder. Because if I was getting, a big guarantee this year, okay, that would be limiting to my son and his team that wants to do it. How could that be fair? Right? So it's not great for me, okay? But it is great for the 900 other people that are not me. And there's more of them than there is OverActive Media, right? And that's what it is.
Sure. Now, I guess in terms of the economics, let's dive into those, because the only thing that we so far got in terms of being able to grow the revenue from the OWCS side is the announcement that they will also have some form of MTX that will then trickle into the prize pool. I think it's announced for both majors, if I'm not mistaken. It was part of the Overwatch World Cup. I think the number that then trickled into the prize pool for teams was 512,000. Is that something that you're looking at? Is that the right direction? Does that number need to grow?
I think it's okay for this year. Okay, so again, it's an experiment. Let's see. Let's crowdsource. Let's see. What can you do? A big part of the crowdsourcing is really, that I'm looking for is how committed is Blizzard to selling that. If I mean, they're bringing in some of the new skins and some of the stuff. I mean, they're spending a lot of money on anime and other things to basically put them in the thing. I don't know what the budget is there, but it's probably very high. Okay, and I don't know what the budget. Probably not that high. Okay, as so if they want to make this a priority, I think the crowdfunding will be bigger, okay, and then the amount available for everybody will be greater, okay. And if they want it, they will probably disagree with me when I say this, but I will say it anyway. Like, if they want it to be 100,000, they can probably make it there. If they want it to be 500,000, they can probably get it to there. And if they want it to be 1 million, they can get it to be there. And if they want it to be 5 million, they can get it to be there. It's all a question of what they put together, how unique it is, and that's just the way that MTX works in games. So what is that number that they are going to go? And given that I believe they choose that number, what number they choose to put will be very informative for me. Okay, and so that's a key kind of performance indicator, I think, for their commitment to the league, right? And if it's pretty low, then what that means is that somebody at Blizzard is saying, I don't want to give up any more revenue than that amount, okay, for the Overwatch World Cup. That is the decision that is not the World Cup, the Overwatch Champion Series. So that is the decision. And so if that number is too small, it just doesn't show the commitment. And so people would then be right not to be interested. So give me a good number, Blizzard, is what I would say for that. So that you can basically fund the system. But look, long term, that's not enough. The teams will eventually need some kind of a partnership agreement with Blizzard. If they want to turn this into, something that can be competitive and long term. And if you remember, we were talking about Valorant. Valorant didn't start up with their partnership agreement. They started out something similar to this. Okay, lots of tournaments, lots of third-party people doing a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, it was actually probably even more, kind of less of kind of control from them as this. So let's start, let's prove, and then let's figure out the business model. That's where we are.
Now, I want to get on partnership agreements, maybe outside those with the developer after this. But I wanted to probe a little bit on the MTX front. Did you feel satisfied with the MTX that was generally available in the Overwatch League? Is that the scale, like team skins to okay, maybe those we won't get because we don't have, you know, regular franchises that are participating, but I mean, there's still some leftover skins trickling in. We just had the Dallas Fuel and Florida Mayhem. Is that the level of effort that you want?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we want to have the ability at some point, or at least, you know, kind of a path to it, where at some point we can sell our branded skins, whatever that final brand is going to be, Toronto Defiant or whatever, you know, in the Overwatch game for our fans. Okay. And, you know, absent that, there's probably not a long-term future for at least for us, right? And for others. It depends really on a number of other things. But, you know, that, you know, the being able to be part of the digital ecosystem, the app store for Overwatch is where what we value the most. Okay. And now we're not, okay? And I haven't received any information that there's a pathway. So I'm taking a leap of faith here to kind of be involved. But if they were to come back and say, hey, at the end of the year, that is something that we're never going to do in this game, I would have to very seriously consider whether we wanted to be into it, just because there's other things that do provide that. And, you know, we're esports. We've got limited money. We're going to have to decide where to invest. And if, you know, if Blizzard doesn't want to support, you know, its ecosystem that way, then we'll go to the others that do want to support it, right?
For sure. Now, the other way where support could be coming from is the third-party tournament organizer sector. I believe in CS, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the Louvre agreement where certain teams came together, and because these partnerships were not possible with Valve, were mostly hands-off with their leagues before, or rather their esports before, they made one with a tournament organizer themselves. Do you think that's a possible way for Overwatch?
No. That's going away. So Louvre agreement, the Blast partnership that they have in Counter-Strike, Valve has already said we don't want that. That stuff is going away. Those slots will no longer, that's not the way that they wanted to do it. I think that's a good idea. I think for games like that, I wouldn't want to see that in the Overwatch League either. And so as a result, I mean, we you know, we have movie star Koi, which is in the RMR right now in Counter-Strike. And you know, movie star Riders, which had the team before we bought them, you know, didn't invest very heavily into it. And we were in it in the past as MadLions, and then we exited Counter-Strike, largely because of Louvre agreement and Blast and some of these other things that are there. It limited us, and I didn't want to have to pay $5 million or whatever the number was to some third-party operator who has nothing to do with Valve to participate in their league. It was very unfair to all of the teams. So with that going out, I think that's there. But, you know, what they do in Counter-Strike is if you make it to a major, they sell a skin pack, okay? And so the teams that go there, you know, Valve makes that available, and that encourages you to basically build a team that is good enough to make it to the majors. And, you know, we weren't involved, so I don't know the details, but in the Paris major, they sold $110 million worth of skins, okay? That is a phenomenal number, and that is an eye-opening number. And I think, you know, if done properly, that is incremental revenue, not only to the teams and the esports and the ecosystem, but to the publisher. Okay. And Valorant is certainly, you know, kind of designed in that model. You know, if you go to the championship, they've got different skin packs. Okay. Those elements of being able to have, you know, I look at each game as having its own app store. Okay. Riot has an app store for Valorant. We want to be in that app store. I want to be eventually, hopefully, in a League of Legends app store. I want to be in the Call of Duty app store, and I want to be in an Overwatch app store down the road. And if that's where the greatest potential is, and if they lock that out, okay, I honestly believe that the esport doesn't become viable for organizations, you know, absent anything else.
Right. Now, let's talk about the anything else, because there's a big hole the middle of the year of the schedule of the Overwatch Championship series. Suggests.
Oh, really? What months?
I believe it's June and July, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And it
Okay.
suggests a participation at the Esports World Cup, at least getting ready for that. There have been rumors, whether or not that's true. Would that be something Toronto Defiant would participate in?
To be honest, I don't have any information on that from any kind of official components. I hear the same rumors that you guys have heard. Again, it's something that is interesting. I think, any esports club in the current environment for esports, should look at it. I think you have like an obligation to look at it, whether you want to do it or not, because unless you own your organization 100% yourself, okay, your decisions are not just for you. Okay, they're the decisions of, what is in the best interest of our shareholders and partners. So I think, that's interesting, but we aren't entering the Overwatch World Cup or the Overwatch Champion Series with that in mind. Okay, and we're not getting a subsidy, this kind of started up. We're not, that's not the basis of what we're doing in the Overwatch Champion Series. The basis of what we're doing is what I told you before, and if and when that becomes a possibility, we'll look at it and we'll decide it. And I understand the sensitivities there, but my job as a CEO is to review the data and then to make a decision and a recommendation as to how we behave with respect to it.
Now, the incentive here for probably Overwatch viewers aren't aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, the system that the Esports World Cup has is that there are overlapping points. So, like, teams basically attend, and then basically all the subsidiary teams that accrue points for the organization, and then there's a big prize pool for the best organization at the end. Therefore, there's an incentive to go into the other less, more fringe games. Recently, we've seen an uptick in, organizations picking up StarCraft. I wonder what's that about, right? But to accrue these points in these fringe games, and it feels like some of that might be motivated by that prize pool. Is that something that you have considered, like if you were to participate there? Because you are in a lot of esports, right? And having the world's best Overwatch team, that's a lot of points. That's potentially a lot of revenue there at the end, right?
Yeah. We haven't committed or done anything with respect to that. And I'm following it with some interest. I don't know like what the total dollar number is. I don't know what the details are. We are involved in many different games, okay? And to some degree, we have sources with the publishers and with other people that can kind of give us some idea of what might happen with this game versus that game, especially if we're already in that ecosystem. But we haven't had anybody reach out to us from any official capacity to basically say, "Hey, does Toronto Defiant want to go to the Esports World Cup, or does MadLions?" We have not had any of those discussions with anybody, and so to be honest, it's I can understand why that's problematic for a lot of people and the concerns that they have. But let's wait and see what happens. I'm torn by it, to be honest. Like many other people probably in the industry are. I tend to be very much more kind of socially liberal. Okay, and I would say fiscally conservative and socially liberal is the way that I kind of live my life. And I think people should be who they want to be, and I think more freedom is better than less freedom, and I'm very sensitive to those issues. Having said that, we're also in China. We're in other areas that are problematic, right? And sometimes I feel boycotting or not having contact with people actually separates you more, right? And we had Sir Majed play for us last year, for example, who's from Saudi Arabia. Like if we as a society decided to boycott all of Saudi Arabia for all of the reasons that we don't like about some of the things over there, then somebody like him couldn't have the opportunity to come and play for us, right? We couldn't realize that he's an amazing person, right? He's like us, and kind of, as crazy as that sounds. And again, I do believe that more contact is better than less contact, but that's not to diminish or justify anything in terms of any future action. I'm just saying, I prefer to deal with other people than with other people's governments. And I know a lot of people in China that are wonderful people, and I don't agree with their government. And I know a lot of people in Saudi Arabia and other places in the world, if you're talking about all of the hot places, like, let's focus on the people and not the government. But, if and when we find out more about that, we'll have to decide. But, what I can tell you is uncategorically, none of the things that we are doing is preparing for some big honey pie that they're going to pay us over there. We can live with it or without it, to be honest. We just have to decide what our role is in the industry.
Now, you made the distinction between people and the government. Unfortunately, there is no distinction in that case, right? Is that a distinction that would...
No, I'm talking about the fans. Look, the Valorant, I'm not sure if it has been announced yet, so I'm not going to say about anything. But a couple of years ago, the World Championship for League of Legends was in China, right? And this was during COVID, and there was problems over there in terms of some places opened up more than other places. There was a lot of issues over there, and we qualified, and we went, and we were there, and there was audience that was there, and the people that go and watch esports or League of Legends World Championship or any other kind of event, they are there, they are free when they're there. Okay, they, like, those people deserve the happiness, right? And they're not like, if you want to take it to the extreme, they are not the cause of those problems that we have the issue with. Okay, they're the people that are living in that system. And so, like, it just seems to me difficult to say that we should prevent them from coming in, being exposed to us and our culture, and cheering for something that they're passionate about over something that they don't have any control over, right? That's the one side, okay? The other side is, are you perpetuating it? Are you funding it? Are you helping out in their other objectives that they might have? I get that. I understand that, right? It's not an easy answer. I don't, I don't think either answer is wrong. Okay, so I don't. If people want to go there and they want to basically take advantage of the opportunities from an economic perspective, I think that is a valid choice for them to make. As valid as putting gasoline in your car. Okay, as valid as having Emirates on your jersey because it's a sponsor for your favorite football team. Right? There's a lot of ways in which society can be changed. Okay, and the question really is esports, from the position that esports is, a position of weakness, okay, of many organizations that are losing money, is that where you draw the line? Like, your favorite football player can go over there, they can run the golf tournaments, you can put the gas in your car, you can fly in a plane, you can do all of that stuff, and that's not going too far. But if a team goes to Saudi Arabia to participate in this, that's it. That's the worst thing. I think we shouldn't be hypocritical, right? So look, I don't think we're going to answer that. I don't have an answer for that right now. I'm more or less maybe just kind of giving you, kind of my frame of reference of the issues, right? And it's not an easy thing. The bigger it is, with the more money that they offer, the harder it is to basically say to your shareholders and to your partners, many of whom in this industry have lost a lot of money, okay, that I'm going to continue to lose a lot of money because out of my principle, and I don't speak for all of our shareholders. So that's kind of our position. I assume that is the position of everybody else in esports.
Will OverActive Media be part of the 22 teams that are part of the club program, or will OverActive Media apply to those 6 extra slots?
I think all of that stuff is under NDAs, okay? What I can tell you is that I'm not under an NDA, right? So if they've given out, NDAs, if they've picked out 22 teams, I don't know what the current status of any of that stuff is. I don't have any binding agreement with anybody over there. So maybe that answers your question. It depends on what everybody else knows that I don't know. Okay, so.
Right, yeah. So in conclusion, like, if if there was to be a tournament there? And would you wish that the Overwatch Championship series, their rules would be abided by? Because theoretically, it's possible that they don't care about region locks and whatnot, right? For instance, and that would
I have
therefore.
no idea. I haven't heard anything about what their approach is going to be. Look, I think the same group owns both. Like I think ESL Facebook Group is running Overwatch, and I think they're also doing the esports. So I would assume they're going to do it combined together. I would think, there is no way that any game can show up at the Esports World Cup without the publisher allowing their IP to be used there. Okay, so that is the main area. Okay, if the game is there, then some publisher that is bigger than any single team, okay, all of whom is desperate for money, has agreed to some terms with them. Okay, and that agreement probably determines what the rules will be for that game. Okay, I don't think. I'm speculating, but I don't think that Esports World Cup determines the rules for every game. I think that when they license it from the publisher says, okay, you're gonna have to follow these rules. Okay, so that's a good question. I think maybe that's a good question for Blizzard, or maybe that's a good question for them. But from the team side, the weakest part of that ecosystem is the team. Okay, and maybe I'm going on like too much about it, but I'm somewhat like concerned that the pressure is put on the teams who are the weakest partners, okay, as opposed to the other elements that have all of the money and all of the resources that are basically doing it, right? And I think if anybody is concerned, they should kind of direct their. I would say you should be concerned at people that are more equal in size to the people that are putting it together, or you should get involved with your government. There's things that you can do actively. Maybe the best way to protest something that you disagree with is not through your esports team, right? Maybe that's among the least things you can do, right? Maybe what you should do is get active, maybe get involved in politics, maybe get involved in a charity. Maybe there's things that you can do that are far more productive than to basically say, I hate this team because they're going to do something. It's again, maybe I've gone on too far, but again, that's kind of my view. What I can say is that, again, from our perspective, we have made no decisions. I'm not, I haven't had any discussions. I'm not under an NDA and not providing information because I'm not allowed to. I'm looking at it and assessing it from the perspective of what are the economics and what is my responsibility as a CEO of who's responsible for our players and teams, but also our fans and the community. And it's look, the bigger you guys know this, right? The more big it is, the more hard it is on people like me, right?
Now, I think therefore it's probably also a fair question when that question eventually has to be answered. You've been in Overwatch for a while. Do you think there's a point also to be made, maybe even to your shareholders, that there might be damage in participating in such because of the perception of the North American audience? What's that particular system?
Look, that's my job. Okay, so that's again, that's my job to determine whether that's kind of worth it or not. So I don't again, I don't need to go. I need to consider their interests, but I don't need to go and get their their permission. But I mean, that's something to assess. Again, I would say, like, if you are a North American fan and you are very opposed to this, okay, you should look first to the publisher and not to me or to our team or to any of the team. Okay, what makes this possible is not just the government of Saudi Arabia and the money and it is the publishers that basically license it, and so it is not. And I guess what I've been saying repeatedly is that it is not automatically negative for the broader cause that some people consider. Okay, for this to happen. Okay, there is an opportunity to also engage with the people, the fans that are going to watch. Okay, many of whom are not at fault for the policies of their government. Okay, and many of whom may live in fear because of the policies of their government. And maybe they can come to an event like this with a game like Overwatch, which is so diverse, as an escape from some of that stuff. Okay. And I don't know who you punish, okay, by boycotting an esport event if you're going to get in your car and drive to work, or even go into a bus and drive to work, which is funding all of this stuff in the first place. Okay. Again, it's easy to become, kind of activist when, it doesn't cost you anything. Okay. But if you're going to do that, maybe you should,
I guess the fair
walk
difference
everywhere.
is one of probably a necessity to the life of many people to drive to work.
Yeah. Okay. And like I said, there's also the golf things that they bought. There's your favorite
True.
football team that is probably, there's your favorite airline that is probably, there's, any one of those is 100 times bigger than esports. Okay. So look, I'm not saying that we're doing it, and I'm not, spending a lot of time on that, but I just want to make it clear. The reason is that for those that decide to do it, okay, I don't think that they should be vilified. Okay, I think they are the weakest participants in the situation, and I think if we decide to do it, it'll be because of that context. Okay, not because of anything else.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. In that case, and also in respect for your time, thank you for the interview, and of course, best of luck in the Overwatch Championship series. I think you guys have a great roster there.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we're very excited about it. Again, I hope that all of my expectations come true, and that we're having a conversation about what's happening in 2025 in 6 or 9 months.
For sure, and then hopefully find out which brand it will be under.
Yes, that too. Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.